Okay, so now I'm at the getting close to the end of this thread. You'll see that usually you want to leave at least like 1 or 2 inches so that it doesn't come back through the eye and fall off. Now that I've only got about 2 inches left on the thread that I'm sewing with, and then the 2-inch tail, I'm going to end here by putting it through the cloth, and I'm going to take this off the needle and tie a double knot on this side so that it hopefully doesn't come undone. And then this thread, you never want to, when you're a little kid, you think, okay, I'll cut the thread really closely to the knot, but you don't want to do that because, I'm going to knot it one more time, because if you do that, you can lose the knot easily and then things come unraveled. So if you can knot it a bunch of times, so it's unlikely to go through the cloth, and then with the tail, just tuck it in, because that's all going to be underneath the seam. Because that'll make it less likely that the knot will go through or come undone, and it will be hidden anyway, so that will work. Now, Julia, my assistant, was kind enough to thread another needle with black thread again, and I'm going to be on my way to, sew this again. Now she did what I mentioned to you.
I didn't cut it.
You didn't cut it yet?
No, how did it break?
Oh, huh. Okay, then it's probably just somehow the thread was on there. Did you that means you didn't put a knot on it yet. Okay, then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna do at least 1 knot. Do a second. I always do at least 2, and if I've got time, like I do today, I'm just gonna try to do a 3rd one.
I'm gonna pause it.
Okay, so I'm almost done sewing this, and we're having an interesting discussion on when I was in middle school. There were 4 required classes. 2 were called shop classes, and 2 were called, well, there were more than 4 required classes, but the 4 that were most useful, that I loved the most, or at least 3 of the 4, were shop. There were 2 different shop classes, wood shop that I loved, and metal shop that would have scared Julia too, because you use safety goggles, and you have torches, and you melt metal, and anyway.
This is like loud.
It was
for middle schooler?
Yep, for middle schoolers, 7th and 8th graders. But wood shop, to be fair, wood shop was 7th grade and metal shop was 8th grade. And then in home ec, we had 1 grade was cooking and 1 grade was sewing. And I think that those were some of the best classes I ever took, because you understand how things are made and you get a better appreciation of how things are made. And for people who make clothing, who cook, who do woodwork, who weld and make ships. And I wish that those were still required classes. I don't know if any schools require them anymore. But
did all schools used to require them?
I don't know, because I was the 7th and 8th grader, so I just assumed that everybody was learning that, but maybe it was just my school. But I think a lot of people took those classes, and I learned a lot in all 4 classes. And to this day, many of the things that I use, like my wood glue fix recently, wood glue was something I learned about in 7th grade. And I
you said 3 out of the 4 classes. Which
yeah,
one was not as helpful?
The metal class, yeah, was the one that I don't use on a day-to-day basis, but I do use my knowledge from the wood class for things like, that's how I know how to use the difference between nails and screws, and knowing about sandpaper, like all the things.
I know about sandpaper.
You do too?
Yeah.
How do you know about it?
Isn't it the thing that like you do like that so it evens it out?
It just like, yeah, rough, it makes things that are rough less rough. And you can use increasingly. And so I made furniture in 7th grade, like little pieces of furniture.
Right.
And then in college, I even did some wood shop and just, you know, I've fixed a lot of things. Anyway, so yeah, wood shop, and then I, of course, use sewing and cooking, and yeah, I think everybody should take it.
Yay.
Yay. And then the other thing I was going to say is that I see that the original was intended to have a little sewing line here. So once, you know, we get our sewing machine up and running, we're going to actually sew with the pleats. I don't know if, Julia, you've ever sewed with pleats before. You just have to, you know, decide which direction you want the pleats to go, and then it'll have that same look and feel. But for now, the part that I just sewed doesn't have that thread, but you know, once you are wearing it, no one's ever going to notice that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.